Hey there, patrons. I got a long message from a new patron. I'm so excited to have all the new people here. It's so fun, and I don't want to like embarrass him or anything, but he asked some questions about songwriting, and I thought that it might be cool to maybe just answer some of those questions in a video, and that I might be able to give you sort of a crash course on how I sort of think about songwriting and like a really just basic overview. So I'm going to show you my iPad screen and show you some notes and kind of go through a few things really quickly if you're interested in that. So a thing that I hear pretty frequently, and this is one of the things that came up in this message, is when it comes to songwriting, people don't know where to start, which makes sense, right? Because it seems like this big undertaking. It is a big undertaking for sure, but it seems like this big insurmountable undertaking to create something like a song when you've never done it before. And so I usually go through with students that take songwriting lessons or coaching or consultations with me. I kind of take them through this process, and you'd be surprised. To me, this seems pretty straightforward if you listen to music. I think I just have sort of an analytical brain, and I like to see patterns. So it's what seems obvious to me may not be obvious to others. Here's a really basic. If we're talking about in terms of a basic pop song, the best way to get a picture of what's happening is to look at the song form. So in just about, every contemporary song or modern song, say from the 70s or so and beyond, we typically have some kind of intro. Then we'll have a verse, like verse 1. Sometimes we'll have a pre-chorus. We'll have a chorus. Sometimes we'll have a post-chorus. I'll get into these in a second. Maybe a re-intro. So it's kind of like another section before we go back into the next verse. Verse 2. Pre-chorus 2. Chorus 2. Post-chorus 2. Bridge. This is sometimes a whole different section with lyrics, and sometimes it's an instrumental section. Then we have a chorus. Often we'll have a double chorus at the end, so we could call this chorus 3 and 4 perhaps. Maybe a post-chorus after that. Post-chorus 3. And then an outro perhaps. Particularly what you'll hear on the radio will follow this almost exactly. And we can kind of talk about what some of these things might mean. So intro, for instance, is just like, how do we get into this thing? And sometimes that's just a few bars of music. Sometimes it starts right on the vocal. There's no intro. Verse 1 is going to be a couple lines. Pre-choruses are, of course, optional. You won't always find them, but you see them a lot, particularly in more modern music. Post-chorus, I feel like especially is more of a modern thing. If you hear a song that has a section after a chorus, or like in the second half of the chorus where there's a lot of O's, the one that I always think of is roar. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. To me, that's like such a post-chorus. There are tons of examples, but that's usually a dead giveaway that it's a post-chorus, is it has like O or ah section. A re-intro is kind of like another intro. Sometimes it's shorter than the original intro, the first intro. And then again, you've got your verse, your chorus, and your post-chorus, and your bridge. So we would call this, like a verse, chorus, bridge, double chorus, kind of thing. V, C, V, or I suppose you could call it like A, B, C, B, B, if that makes sense. So like our verse is an A section, and a chorus is a B section because it's different from the first section. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when we're talking in terms of, like, say, a jazz standard, the form is different. Usually we have what we call an A, B, A form, okay? And so that meaning there's like let's go ahead and call it a verse for now. So there's sort of a verse section, and then another verse that, that repeats, so similar melody, different lyrics, and then a slightly different section in the middle called, we'll call a bridge, for these purposes, and then another verse. I don't like to call these verses in this form because in the traditional sense of this style of song, often these songs were used in musicals, and so there was sometimes a sort of recitative section at the top. Now, recitative is, if you've ever seen an opera, you'll have arias within operas, and arias are the big emotional moments that kind of give you some insight into the emotional nature of whatever the character is going through. The recitative is the rest of the stuff, because everything is sung in opera, right? So the recitative actually moves the plot forward. And so in musicals, we sometimes have this type of thing. And in this case, we call that the verse. So there's usually, or often, there is a little section at the top of the song called the verse. And so we would call that like V there. And then these we just actually call A, A, maybe A, maybe A1 or A2, depending on, what you're working with, B, and then A3, say. You won't find this exact form in every single song of this style, just like you wouldn't see this form in every song of a more contemporary style, but this is pretty standard. And the reason why it's important to consider these pieces is because once you see the pattern, it's kind of just filling in the holes. Let's look at, I thought it'd be fun to show you a version of this one, with the song that I submitted for you yesterday, which is If Only for Tonight. Okay, so this is my worksheet where I actually wrote the lyrics like while I was working on the song, and then these are the lyrics, sort of the final version of the lyrics typed out. I use this to create like a little chart for myself so that I can not play this for several weeks, and if someone asks for it, I can play it again, or if I think like, oh, I want to play that again, then I remember how it goes without having to make like a full band chart for it. This is just the lyrics without the chord changes on it, but I do usually put chord changes on it too. If you are a patron at the $10 tier, you get these lyric sheets, both of these, and if you are a patron at the $25 tier or higher, you actually get the chart too. So I wanted to show you this one as an example of what we were just talking about. So for instance, we've got no verse on this one. I do like to put verses on these types of songs, but I didn't do one for this. So we've got our A section here, we've got another A here, we've got a B there, and we've got an A here. Often you'll see with these types of forms, there's a vocal on the A, and I think I have a pointer I could use. Yeah, here we go. So there's a vocal on the A, and the A, and the B, and then the A, and then usually the instrumentalist will go through this however many times makes sense. And sometimes they will just do these two sections, and then the vocal will come back in here, etc. So I like to give myself, since I'm doing a lot of things solo, I try to give myself, some kind of arrangement so that these songs are often very short. They're usually less than 3 minutes long. So to make them feel a little bit longer, and also just to make it feel like more of a song, I often will give myself some kind of arrangement where I'll do something else down here, sort of pre-dictate what I'm going to do in a given situation so I don't have to think about it on the spot. And so in this case, I would have rewritten basically this section, these sections again here, but when I was writing, I thought it would be cool to do a variation of the last two, so that it has a little bit something different to it. So if I were performing this live with a band, we'd probably do this section, A, B, A. They would probably do A, and then I would probably start singing in the second B with the different lyrics going out to the last A. So you'll notice that the form is the same, and I could have just repeated these two sections down here, but instead I decided to do like a variation and add some different lyrics down here. When I was writing this, I felt like this last verse was not, or stanza, I suppose, was not final enough to me. It didn't have enough gravitas, and I wanted it to have a little more something to it, like of a conclusion to it. So I thought it would be cool to actually go back and rewrite the and do some more verses on it to sort of flesh out the story a little bit more. In beginning this song, just as a note, that once I decided to try to do that, that was a little bit scary because it's like, oh gosh, like it's going to take so long to figure out what to say. But here's the thing with this stuff is I knew pretty early in, it took me a while. I tried a few different ideas before I landed on, doing this sort of medium swing kind of jazzy 30s thing, where I sat down at the piano and I messed around with some stuff, and then I like grabbed my guitar and I messed around with some stuff, and nothing really felt right. I wasn't feeling, I mean, I don't really like the word inspiration, but nothing was really like getting me excited. So I finally came up with a little something that I liked that I thought might be nice. I really liked this idea of something that people could dance to. And so once I came up with that idea, it already helped dictate for me what form I was going to need to pursue. Now, it doesn't always mean I'm going to follow exactly that form, but it gives me a skeleton and I just kind of have to fill in the skeleton. So, so in this case, I knew I was going to need to have an A and an A and a B and an A and then possibly a B and an A. So really the hardest part was coming up with the very first part, because you're kind of creating the rules for the universe of the song when you first start. Now by that I mean like rhyme scheme, perhaps, so like I knew I had to have early morning hour in here. I wasn't sure if I wanted that to be like the refrain line, and by that I mean the line that keeps coming back around. I didn't know if I wanted that to be the refrain line or not. I figured probably not, because I don't like a lot of the options that I had for the rhyme of hour. Kind of get power and flower and devour. So I knew that if I was going to be using that as a refrain line, that might be kind of challenging for me. So I was pretty sure I didn't want to put it there. A lot of this is just kind of deductive reasoning and trying to figure out where things make sense or don't make sense. And because I was using this inspiration of like a dance floor, sort of like a vintage sepia and amber lights, and if you've ever been in a like a club or something where there's like a dance floor and amber lighting, and then the light gets reflected off the dance floor, which is shiny, and because it's nighttime, everything just sort of has this glow to it, and I really wanted to try to encapsulate that with some of the imagery. So that helped a little bit. I knew I could talk about the moon being high. I knew that I want to talk about amber light. I think originally the refrain line I had was like just for tonight or something. And then I realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to work. So I eventually came upon if only for tonight. And so then once I decided what the refrain line would be, that helped me decide on the rhyme scheme. So the rhyme scheme here is, it's not to confuse you, but I know that we're talking about sections being called AA, BA, etc., but we use the same kind of terminology for rhyme schemes. So we have A, high, light. They're similar. They're not perfect rhymes. And then shuffling feet mark the beat. So it's kind of a B, sort of tight together, then back to A as couples glide, and then across the sparkling floor, then you waltz through the door. That's actually C, and suddenly something in me ignites. So that's A again. So now I'm working with here, I'll remove those so that you don't get confused. So now we're working with a rhyme scheme that's like this, A. Because they're close together, I for some reason want to put them like this, B, and then C, and then A. So A, B, C, A. And so then that helps me dictate what the rest of them are going to be, right? So we have that again for the second section, the second A section, and then I know that that's going to be what it is for the third A section. And then I initially just assumed I was going to just repeat that last A, but I ended up creating another verse with that formula. When it got to the bridge, I didn't want it to be so short, but it just kind of felt right. I was kind of going for like Embraceable You, or like I'm Old Fashioned, where the chords move really fast. So we've got the chords moving sort of slowly throughout the, oh, the moon is high, ba da da da, ba ba da ba. Like they're kind of changing every bar. And so for the bridge, they start changing every half measure, I think. Ba ba ba, da 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 da. And to me, it sort of gave it this sort of lilting, like waltz feeling, kind of like you're being swept away or dipped in a dance. So that made sense for me, and so I just went ahead and let the chords kind of inspire me there. The movement of those changes inspire me there, and do different, just do 2 lines. So if we're talking about A, B, B, C, this would be D, D. And then since we're using something different down here, we'd call that E, E, if that makes sense. So again, once I figured out what this needed to be, you know, then it made the rest of it not easy exactly, but it gave me a roadmap sort of to follow. And then when I decided at the end, when I thought like, oh man, this really needs something else to kind of give this story some closure, or at least a more of an emotional moment. Up until this second bridge, at that point, the narrator seemed a little bit flippant or like promiscuous, and it's fine. It's fine. It's just, I love you, but just for tonight, you know? And that's fine. I actually didn't have a problem with that in the beginning, but I felt like it would have a little more impact if we kind of pulled it out of that, it doesn't matter, like if this just lasts one night, and actually change it to like, oh man, I really don't want this to just be for one night. It kind of gives it a turn and a little twist that makes it a little more relatable, and you kind of like care about the characters more. So that's why I decided to add that last part, because I wanted it to have a little more of an emotional arc. Cool, so that's this one, and so you can see here it more clearly, how it works. So for instance, moon is high, moon is high, rooms aglow with amber light, shuffling feet mark the beat as couples glide across the sparkling floor, then you waltz through the door, and suddenly, so there's kind of a little hidden one in there, something in me ignites. That's kind of nice, actually. I catch your eye as you approach a shining night, so disarmed by your charm I heave a sigh, and wonder, could this finally be the one fate meant for me, someone to love, if only for tonight. I didn't get a secret one in the second one. Hold me close, let's lose ourselves in dancing. I think I'm going to change that to dancing, but dancing. Nights like these were made just for romancing. Your hand in mine, happily we forget the time. Enchanted by the early morning hour, we lose our minds. Gleefully we speak in whispers, cheek to cheek. We kind of get a little extra there. You have my heart, if only for tonight. Sweep me away, I'm caught up in your magic spell. How can it be that we just met, yet you know me so well? It's not like the most strongest thing, but it works. Your hand in mine, happily we lose track of time. As they dim the lights, the golden glow of sunrise shines. I think I actually accidentally sang that incorrectly in the demo, but the golden glow of sunrise shines. There's a little bit of extra alliteration in there, which I thought was kind of nice. Sunrise shines. And as we say our last goodbyes and tears fall from our eyes, I know I've loved you so, if only for tonight. And there's like a little bit, I've loved you so, if only for tonight, like that kind of stuff in there. Which, to be honest, I try to add, but I also try to just sort of let like the language naturally dictate. So if I can think of it and it makes sense and it sounds good and it fits, then I'll use it. But I'm not like actively trying to find those kinds of things that often. Wonder if there's anything else like that. So then if we're talking about terms of imagery, The moon is high, the room's aglow with amber light. Shuffling feet mark the beat. I kind of liked that's what you would hear if you were in a place like that. You'd hear people's feet kind of tapping in time to the music. Across a sparkling floor, I mentioned the lights would be reflecting. Then you waltz through the door, and that was just kind of another little way of painting that picture of a dance hall. And suddenly something in me ignites. So we get a little bit of alliteration there again. And I liked, I don't know that I normally would have used a word like ignites, but I kind of liked we're using sort of this imagery of light and fire and the sun shining and the moon being high, that I kind of thought it was sort of neat to add a little bit of a spark of light internally, way of conveying that. I catch your eyes, you approach a shining night. So disarmed by your charm, I heave a sigh. I liked having this sort of like physical sensation in that line, and wonder, could this finally be the one fate meant for me? And that reminded me of songs from the 30s. Cool. Anyway, I guess I don't have to go on with all the details, but that was sort of just wanted to give you some insight on that one. So that's what that form looks like. And I hope that helped clarify a little bit. So if once you have a map of what the form's supposed to look like, then you need to decide, okay, what are the rules of this universe going to be? So I decided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines, and then that helped me decide what the rhyme scheme is going to be, especially once I decided on that refrain line, because in these types of songs, the refrain line is usually at the end of the stanza or at the beginning or both. And so once I decided what that was going to be and where it was going to fit, then that helped me decide on the rest of the rhyme scheme and on the rest of the form of each stanza. Another one I thought we could talk about is a different type of form. This is one that I did recently that I want to say, let's see, what month is it? I want to say I did this in like April or May, because we put this on Joshua. So this is one that I don't love the demo of it or like the recording of it that much, because it really should be like a huge song with lots of instruments and all of that stuff. But for being an acoustic recording, it's cool. And it was one of those ones that when I was writing it, I felt like, ugh, like this is terrible. But it really, like I get this melody stuck in my head all the time, and I feel like the words being so fast and rhythmic and the rhyme schemes are so like sticky to me, and they're really satisfying. And so I keep coming back to this one, and I thought this would be cool to kind of show you the other style. So this is this is closer to verse chorus. This is actually not a standard one. This is sort of weird too. So we've got a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, a verse, and a chorus. That's it. Now, because I decided to do these really long verbose verses that were really rhythmic, I knew that the choruses need to have long stretched out notes, because we need contrast to maintain interest. And there's also this sort of overarching concept in songs where we want to establish tension so that we can relieve the tension. That meant for me, for this song, to probably keep these, if we're going to do them really wordy, to keep them low and slow and quick, and sort of almost like monotonous a little bit, so that we can have a big kind of resolution, resolve moment, release moment for the chorus. And so one thing that I did with this one that helped a lot is once I knew that I think for this I was pretty sure already that I was going to have it be this kind of form, a verse chorus. I probably was going to do more of a bridge, but what I ended up doing was I kind of made this last verse kind of like a broken down verse, so it's almost like a bridge. It sort of serves the bridge purpose, in my opinion. Maybe I could have done something else with it, but I kind of like what I did with it. It's cool. Rhyme scheme wise, never met what if you had just stayed in bed, if I had scored better on the math of my first SAT test. Again, they're similar rhymes, they're not exact. Or if you had just gone home, or I had never smoked. To me, those are similar. They're not perfect, but we could go ahead and call those B. Never smoked, or if you only had one senior year. That's just like doesn't rhyme with anything. Oh, no, that's not true. It rhymes with this. I might not be here. I might never have left, which is, again, A. Do you ever think of where you'd be if we had never met? I liked this idea of, like, do you ever imagine what it might be like if we'd never met? Then I could do it in the other verses. Do you ever imagine what it might be like if we'd never kissed? Do you ever imagine what it might be like if we'd never fallen in love? And then, so I'm kind of opening this loop of curiosity and sort of getting into some of the details. And so that in the chorus, I can give an answer to it, or at least explore a possible answer. So in this case, why, do you ever think of where you'd be if we had never met? Then why do you pretend that we never did? One thing that that helps a lot for these types of songs is, I like to think of them as, the chorus is sort of your thesis. Here, I'll do this in the pink so you can see it a little better. Your thesis. And your verses, like a conclusive statement, right? And your verses are sort of examples. So if you're thinking of it in terms of like an essay, you're trying to make a point about something, then you would need to support that point with different examples. And so that's very much a part of songwriting, in my opinion. You kind of have to come up with some basic premise, or idea, and then give examples to support that premise or idea. So we have that happening in this. Like, do you ever imagine what it might be like if this had never happened? And then I give examples of things that happened because that happened, to kind of help paint the picture of, like, my life would be so much different if this one thing hadn't happened. I liked the example of having that sort of contrasting style between the two, because it's so clear. They're really long, they're longer phrases compared to the sort of almost like wrapping of that middle section. And you can see that this one I had a harder time with writing down because I wasn't sure what the form should be. But I did like the concept of having there be like 3 of these, like, do you ever imagine this first thing? Do you ever imagine this second thing? Do you ever imagine this third thing? And then having it kind of keep coming back to this section, with the new perspective of each example that I gave in the verses. I don't know if that really answers any questions, but I hope that helps. Basically, once you have some idea of what you want to try to say and how you want to say it, like genre or mood or tone, then the form should, deciding on a form should help you, by providing a scaffolding that you can then fill in with material. And one other thing to note, this one's kind of a wild example because there's so many lines, but you can see, like, the chorus in this is really only 3 lines. Like, that's not that much. And if I were not insane, like, this would just maybe be shorter lines of like 4 rather than these like crazy long lines of 5 or whatever. So once you have that, once you have a chorus that's 2 to 4 lines, that just repeats here and here and here. So that's half the song, so then, getting through that first verse and just make a sort of agreement that you can break with yourself at any point. Like, I'm just going to write 4 lines that have A, B rhyme scheme or something like that. And just start there and see what happens. 'Cause once you have that built, that might shift and it might become something else. Or you can just continue to use that through the rest of the song. Once you have that one verse built, you basically just have to replicate it a second time and change out some of the lyrics, and then maybe come up with a bridge and you're done. It's depending on how you can put as much work into it as you want to, of course. And I only feel that I can do this as quickly as I can because I've done it so much. And that's the thing. Not everything you write is going to be good. Not everything I've written has been good. And, even in these songs, not everything is perfect or anything. And if this one didn't turn out, that if my initial instinct about it turned out to be true, where I just like didn't really like it and I felt like scrapping it, at least there might be something in here that might be good, that I could use for something else, or it would just have been a practical exercise in writing a song, Often I'll write something and not really feel into it while I'm writing it, and then after I give it some space and time, I'll go back to it with fresh ears and be like, oh, here we go. Here's this piece of crap that I wrote, whatever. And then I listen to it. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot better than I remember feeling like it was at the time. So the moral of the story is you have to start somewhere. And the most likely scenario is you're going to write something that that is not what you envisioned you would write, and that's okay. Because if you don't ever start, you don't ever practice, you don't ever get better. And particularly, that's why I like to send you these embarrassing lyric sheets so you can see like how much doesn't work, like how many bad ideas I have, and this I try to just go for it and not edit too much while I'm writing. And because you can always go back at the end and edit later. I do a lot more editing in the moment now just because I've gotten so fast at it. But you can see like I do try things, and I used to just I have a system where if I write something down and I don't like it, I cross it out once. But I don't erase it or scratch it out where I can't see it anymore, because you might realize after the fact, or later in the process, that there was something in there that I had written that actually would be good here. And if you scratch it out or erase it, you can't have those back. So I do a one single cross out, and then if I decide to grab something from there again, then I circle it, so that I can kind of see. It's just a system that I developed many years ago and I still use. So don't cross anything out, don't erase, try not to edit too much in the moment, and just start. What you first write might be terrible, and that's fine. You don't get good until you do a lot of bad stuff first. Trust me. Um, so I hope that was helpful. If any of you have any questions on anything that I just went over, let me know. That was probably a lot of information, and I hope it was valuable for someone out there. Thank you for watching.